Give us it, Mark. Come on, Mark. Come on, Mark. Here we go.
Mr Speaker,
Mark Patterson.
I rise for a much anticipated, I note, contribution on behalf of New Zealand First on this particular bill. Now, first may I start by commending Mr Muller for bringing this bill forward. He obviously believes strongly that it is there's some anomalies in the law that need to be
Please don't
fixed.
bring me into the debate.
Mark Patterson believes in it.
So Mr Muller brought this in good faith. We did look at through the select committee, but unfortunately New Zealand First will not be supporting this bill forward, which in terms of Mr Muller, it has been a bad week. Unfortunately, it's disappointing, I'm sure, for him to be rejected by New Zealand First and Labor, but he has also been rejected by his own leader and much more highly regarded on this side of the House than on that, by all accounts. But nevertheless, we had to address this bill on its merits. And the supposition was that there was a technical conflict between sections 36 and 53 of the Companies Act 1963. Mr Guy, in his contribution, called it a small but very important amendment. There is absolutely no evidence whatsoever that this is a very important amendment, and that ultimately was where our decision fell. There is no case law to suggest this is a problem. The Zespri example that has been given, they've found a way through that. There is plenty of precedent here, as Mr Terakatne pointed out in his contribution. There is already these provisions in place all round within our cooperative companies. So this essentially is a solution looking for a problem. And there was some specialist and some quite high-powered specialist opinion that did suggest that we should uptake this bill, David Goddard QC, but also there was other specialists that refuted that there was a problem. I'll quote Stephen Leyburn, who's a member of the Commercial and Business Law Committee at the New Zealand Law Society, and he submitted, "It is logical that only if Section 53 is irrevocable, is an irrevocable rule which cannot be overridden by the Constitution, there is a problem that needs fixing. Section 53 is not an irrevocable rule, so there is no problem to fix." So we, as lay people sitting on this committee, with no precedent to bring forward, no conceivable groundswell of cooperative companies, which are a major part of our economy, coming forward and demanding that we must put this in place because their business model is in peril. None of that came forward. So essentially, as Kiri Tapu-Allen pointed out in her contribution, if we change the law for the sake of it because we feel that Mr Muller is a nice and well-intentioned member of this parliament, that somehow we should acquiesce when there may be some unintended consequences that have not been canvassed. When the law itself has been proven to be negotiable for those companies that wish to bring in these provisions, the wet, the dry shares, there is essentially no problem to fix. So New Zealand First thinks the threshold for changing the law of New Zealand should be quite high. And in this case, the bar has not been met. So New Zealand First will not be supporting this bill. Thank you.
The question is that the motion